Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler. It is October 12th, 2018. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. Now for this segment, I'm going to provide you with some updates with regards to Tesla and present progress that Tesla has made not only with electric vehicle production, but also with regards to Tesla new energy systems, namely its battery storage facility in Australia, which is breaking the stranglehold of natural gas on the Australian power sector. And I'm also going to talk a bit about how Tesla's push for clean energy vehicles and energy storage, as well as solar, is enabling a transition away from fossil fuel burning, which is the primary driver of global carbon emissions. So before I get into that, though, I would like to talk more about where carbon emissions come from. And I think that in general, there has been some confusion and misinformation spread over the issue of where carbon emissions come from. So I'm going to dig into it for you and show you how fossil fuel burning is the primary source of global carbon emission. So if you look at global greenhouse gas emissions by sector, you see that the largest sector for greenhouse gas emissions is electricity and heat production. The second largest sector for greenhouse gas emissions is agriculture, but there are some offsets in agriculture that are not accounted for in this number. So in actuality, including the offsets, the agriculture number is behind industry once the offsets are included. And the source of industry carbon emissions, according to this report from EPA, which is based on IPCC findings, is that greenhouse gas emissions from industry primarily involve fossil fuels burned on site at facilities for energy. The sector also includes emission from chemical, metallurgical, and mineral transformation processes not associated with energy consumption and emissions from waste management activities. It's worth noting that a lot of chemical production is a fossil fuel intensive process in which the feedstocks for many chemicals are fossil fuel based, and you get an emission that way, as well as various other processes. But the majority of greenhouse gas emissions from industry come from fossil fuel burning or fossil fuel related sources. Now, moving on to the fourth largest source of carbon emissions, we go to transportation. And this includes 14% of 2010 global greenhouse gas emissions. Emissions from this sector primarily involve fossil fuels burned for road, air, and marine transport. Almost 95% of the world's transportation energy comes from fossil fuels. So transitioning away from fossil fuel burning in transportation would considerably reduce transportation's impact on global carbon emissions, as well as provide a considerable reduction overall. Now, the number 5 element with regards to global carbon emissions, number 5 contributor to global carbon emissions is other energy. And this source of greenhouse gas emission refers to all emissions from the energy sector which are not directly associated with heat or electricity production, such as fuel extraction, mining, refining, processing, and transportation, which is linked into other energy, which in all honesty should be linked into transportation as well. But all of that, note, is related to fossil fuels. Fuel extraction is fossil fuel extraction. Fuel refining is fossil fuel refining. Fuel processing is fossil fuel processing. And transportation involves burning of fossil fuels in internal combustion engine vehicles. The last segment is buildings. And buildings involve greenhouse gas emissions from the sector which arise from on-site energy generation and from burning fossil fuels and burning fossil fuels for heat in buildings or cooking in homes. So if you look at all these sectors, primarily fossil fuel burning energy and heat and electricity production, primary fossil fuel burning and extraction, other energy, primary fossil fuel burning industry, primary fossil fuel burning transportation, and primary fossil fuel burning buildings. The only segment that doesn't have an emission that primarily comes from fossil fuel burning is agriculture. So I want to talk about that just very briefly. According to IPCC and EPA, greenhouse gas emissions from this sector come mostly from agriculture, such as the cultivation of crops and livestock, and deforestation. However, this estimate does not include the CO2 ecosystems removed from the atmosphere by sequestering carbon in biomass, dead organic matter, and soils, which offset approximately 20% of the emissions from this sector. So this actually, including offsets, shrinks to about 19%. So 81% of greenhouse gas emissions primarily coming from fossil fuel burning based sectors. That's why transitioning to clean energy in energy generation and transportation is so important, because not only does it reduce fossil fuel emissions from those sectors, but it reduces the fossil fuel intensive emissions from mining and extraction. And it also provides means of heating buildings and powering industry based on renewable energy, accounting for that 81% emission. So let's go back to Tesla's mission statement. So we've got 7 minutes, we've got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to move through this a bit. So according to Elon Musk, Tesla exists to help reduce the risk of catastrophic climate change, which affects all species on Earth. Even if your faith in humanity is faltering, this is worth caring about. Support makes a difference. Thank you. And this is one of the reasons why we support Tesla's mission wholeheartedly, because it is a transformational industry that enables not just transforming transportation, but power generation, and enables the mating of renewable energy with batteries, which increases renewable energy's competitiveness with traditional fossil fuels for various different uses. And in a prime example to this, in Australia, Tesla battery is breaking natural gas's costly stranglehold on peaker electricity plants. The battery is so rapidly responsive that it's making natural gas plants look like laggards when it comes to the peaking role of power plants. And according to this article published in Red, Green, and Blue, the massive 129 megawatt hour Tesla Power Pack installation in South Australia has already been having a strong impact on the region's electricity market, saving grid operation, Neonen, and customers an estimated $25 million, or just over 1/3 of the purchase price in its first year of operation. So outcompeting fossil fuels for providing these services is critical, and that's one of the things that Tesla is doing. Now, on top of that, Tesla's clean energy vehicle production continues to expand. And at the start of the fourth quarter, production of electric vehicles hit 11,500, despite the fact that early quarter production tends to lag. So it looks like we're looking at another potential record quarter for Tesla. And though Tesla's focusing on profitability, it does look like Tesla will eke out some more production gains before another strong, likely surge in production in the first quarter of 2019. So just again, an overview of where carbon emissions are coming from, primarily fossil fuel burning, and the kinds of business models, primarily business models like Tesla's, which are all clean energy, that are needed to remove that emission from the human system and protect human civilization and the human environment and the global environment as well. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.